Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today is another installment of Card Making 101, and today we're going to be having a look at some must-have items for your crafting. So I've gone for some real staple items that you're going to want to have to hand, and also then I've got a few extras that I'm going to add in. Some of it will depend on what kind of crafting you are going to be doing, but let's start off with some of the real basic items that you are going to want to have. So number one on my list is a pair of scissors, of course. Now, what I would highly recommend if you are a left-handed person, get some left-handed scissors. So for the longest time, I was using these scissors by X-Cut that I picked up. I think it was from the range. They did sort of 4 different sizes of these, a bigger size than this, these two, and then a pair of snips. But when it came to things like fussy cutting, I really struggled as a left-handed person to use these kind of scissors and get a really great result. So if you are left-handed, absolutely invest in a pair of left-handed scissors. These are the Tim Holtz lefty scissors. These are the slightly bigger ones. You can get smaller ones, and I'm pretty sure that Onyx Studios do a pair as well. But you absolutely need to have a good pair of scissors in your stash, whether you're fussy cutting, whether you are just cutting down some cardstock, whatever it may be, a pair of scissors absolutely is a must. So next up on my list is a T-square ruler. Now I think this is one of the most important items to have, and having a T-square ruler rather than just a regular one. So you have this piece at the one end, and what makes it so great is you can literally lock it up against a straight edge and make sure that where you're marking, measuring, whatever it is that you're doing, you can make sure that it is absolutely straight. As long as the edge you're putting it up to is straight, then your line is going to be straight as well. So, you know, taking a regular ruler, you can sort of eyeball it and think, yeah, that's going to be straight there, and you can find out that it's not. So just invest, they don't cost very much, invest in a T-square ruler so you know then all of your measuring is going to be absolutely accurate. Next up on the list is quite simply just a pencil. So super important if you're making any sketches beforehand, if you need to mark where you're going to be cutting, whatever it is that you're doing, then absolutely you are going to want to have a pencil on hand. This one has a rubber on the end of it, or you can just get a separate rubber, but definitely having a good pencil in your stash is going to be perfect. Then next up you can look at adhesives. So you can pick what kind of adhesive works best for you depending on the projects that you are creating. I have both liquid glue and double-sided tape in my stash. You can either go for both or, like I said, one or the other. So for the majority of my crafting I do use liquid glue. This is the Nuvo Deluxe adhesive, and out of all the glues that I've ever tried, this by far is the best. I find with better quality cardstock you don't get any warping, any rippling, anything like that. It is a super strong adhesive as well, and I just think it works absolutely perfectly. And what you can do just to take it a step further is then decant it into a smaller bottle that's got a fine nib. So as an additional to this, I would then add in a fine tip glue if you're going to be using liquid glue. If you're trying to adhere smaller pieces together, if you're just working in small areas or you only want a small amount of glue, then having a fine tip is going to work perfectly. So this end is perfectly fine for what it is, but again, if you want to get into those smaller areas, you're definitely going to want to work with a fine nip bottle. So again, that's just something I'm going to add in there as a little bonus. And then of course you've got double-sided tape, and you can pick this up quite cheap. You can then go into things like double-sided red liner tape, which can be used for stronger adhesion, but this is just as good. If you're not confident with liquid glue, then using a double-sided tape is going to be an easy option. With your liquid glue, you have a little bit of wiggle time, so you can make sure that you get it in place and it's where you want it to be. With this, kind of once it's down, you know, potentially you might rip it, bringing it back up again. So again, having a really good adhesive in your stash is ideal. Again, one or the other, or you can opt for both. So next on the list is going to be a Pokey Tool. So this can come in handy for lots of different things, and it will really depend on what kind of crafting that you do. So this particular one here is by X-Cut. It is a retractable Pokey Tool, just to be a little bit safer. Lots of brands have a Pokey Tool. You simply just push this piece in and slide it all the way down, and that will bring out your Pokey Tool. It is sharp, so you do want to be careful with it, but you get a lot of use out of an item like this. So if you are doing die cutting and you need to poke your die cut pieces out of the actual dies themselves, then you know a lot of dies you'll find have holes on the back, and you can simply poke this through. So that is probably one of the most common uses for it. You can use it for sort of moving things around. Maybe you're adding some embellishments, then you can use it as just a tool to move bits and pieces around, get things in place that you want it to. You could also use it in more of a decorative way as well. So if you need to add holes to something, if you are maybe going to die cut something and you want to find where the center is, you could use your T-square ruler. You could use this to poke a small hole in it initially, or you could use this then you know, to add holes in something. Again, it really depends what it is that you're doing that you'll find uses for, but again, it's just a really good item to have on hand, because you never know when you're going to need an item like this. Next up on the list is going to be some low tack tape. So again, an item like this is going to have lots of different benefits. You can be able to use it in different ways. With a low tack tape, you can use it to hold bits in place if you're doing some die cutting. Again, I always use low tack tape to hold my dies in place so they don't shift when I'm running them through my die cutting machine. You can also use it to mask off stamps. So if you say had a sentiment stamp, you only wanted to stamp one half of the sentence, then you can use this to mask off that portion. You can use it just as, you know, masking anyway. So if you wanted to create a background and you only wanted to have a panel, you could use some low tack tape so you don't go over those areas. This can be used as well to hold down things like stencils. Again, this can be used in so many different ways. You can get so many different kinds of low tack tape. I use this Hunkydory stuff at the moment. As you can see, I've now just gotten to the end of this roll. But I find this the best. I find that it is low tack. It doesn't rip my cardstock. What you will find is, you know, different tapes will have a different amount of stick to them. So you will need to experiment to make sure that it's not going to rip the cardstock that you have. But I've never really had any problems with the Hunkydory tape. This one comes in different widths as well. So this is just two of the tapes out of the pack that I purchased. You can also use things like washi tape as well. As long as it's low tack and it's not going to rip your cardstock, that is the most important thing. But it's always good to have an item like this on hand, because again, so many different techniques that you can do with just a simple roll of low tack tape. So we're going with a couple of bigger items now. This is a scoring board. This is the EK Tools. Again, lots of brands have different versions of their scoreboards. You can get smaller ones and 12 by 12 inch ones. So this is a smaller one. So this particular scoreboard goes up to 6 5/8, and then you have 1/8 of an inch increments here. You have measurements along the top and along the bottom. This one is in inches, whether other scoreboards come in centimeters. Depending on how you work, you do want to check that before purchasing anything, but they can also do other things as well. So with this particular scoreboard, if you turn it over, so on the back of this one, it will show you how to make envelopes as well. So it's got 4 different size cards. You have a 4-bar, an A2, an A6, and an A7. And then you have your different instructions here with your measurements. So again, your scoreboard might double up as a second item like this one does. I haven't personally used this before, but I'm sure it's very, very easy to follow. So other ways that you can use your scoreboard, you've seen in my other card making 101 videos about creating card bases and shaped cards. I do use my scoreboard to add score marks and assemble those cards. So again, in a very basic way of using the actual scoring tool, but you can also use it in a decorative way as well. So you could be creating a background where you want to add score marks. So for example, if I grab a piece of cardstock here, so we can just pop this in, and let's say we wanted to do 1/2 inch strips on the back to create a background for a card or project. You can simply come in here and just add that as a decorative element for the background of your card, and this in this instance will go up to 6.5 inches, but you can use that then to create decorative elements onto your card. So don't just think about it as a tool itself, you can use it in more of a decorative sort of way. So definitely a scoreboard, even if it's a smaller version like this, is going to come in handy. And the last item that I would say is essential is going to be some form of trimmer. So whether that's a guillotine or a regular trimmer, something that you can cut out straight lines is going to be a must. So this one I've picked here. So I actually have two. This is my smaller version. This is a guillotine style paper trimmer, and this is the Holtz smaller one. This goes up to 6 inches, but if you add a little bit of marking, if you do a little bit of work on it, you can get this to go up higher as well. So the end of this washi tape is actually 7 inches. So with this, it does have centimeters and inches on here. You've got all of your grooves actually on the actual board itself. You do have different markings on here for different sizes as well. So with this, again, they do a smaller version, being this one, and a larger version as well. So again, depending on the kind of crafting that you do, whether you need to have a small one or a large one. If you do work with a lot of larger cardstock, then you will need sort of 12 by 12. You will need to have then a larger guillotine or trimmer, something that will handle that. So this is this smaller one, but I do also have this one. This is my larger guillotine. This one's by Crafters Companion. Again, they do a large and a small version. And what you have is an arm extender, and this will reach then to 13 inches across, so you will be able to cut that larger cardstock, again, if that is something that you work with. So with this particular guillotine by Crafters Companion, it actually doubles up as a scoring tool as well. So if you know that you want to buy a guillotine and a scoreboard, you can find items that are going to combine those two items together to save on space and maybe to save a little bit money as well. So this again goes up in inches and centimeters as well. So this, in terms of the kind of lines here, they are slightly thicker on this particular scoreboard, but it does come with a scoring tool as well. So we can pop this in here if we wanted to add additional score marks. Maybe you want to do a gridded background, then again you can do this, and then this scoreboard is more or less in 1/4 of an inch increments for this, so you can follow this along again, and then once again you're adding a decorative element using your scoring tool. So if you are looking for multiple tools, have a look to see if there is one tool out there that will do everything. So that was a look at some of the really basic items that I do think that you'll need in your craft room. There are additional items, of course, and that really depends on what kind of crafting you are going to be doing. So I'm going to add in a couple of extra items here that you might want to purchase, or maybe some items that you might want to upgrade on. So the first one is going to be an anti-static powder tool. Now the main use of this is going to be if you're heat embossing. If you are heat embossing, this is going to be an absolute must-have item. It's going to prevent your embossing powder sticking to anywhere on your cardstock that you don't want it to stick, and will give you better heat embossing results. So this is an absolute must. There are many different versions of this that you can purchase. This is the EK Tools one again. You can just buy the anti-static powder bags. That's you know, such a basic item. Again, different brands have different sort of variations on this. You can also make these yourself. You can use something like talcum powder here in the UK. Should work just as well. You can add a little bit on and just use a brush if you needed to, just to kind of move it away. But this, again, for heat embossing is an absolute must. You can use this as well on things like foam tape if you're creating like a shaker card. If you just run this anti-static powder over the edges, then it will sort of help to stop your sequins and glitter and things sticking to the edges of your foam tape. Also, if you're adding maybe stickers to your cards and you know, there's certain bits it's going to be maybe hanging over, you can add some powder to the back of it to take any stick off. Same again for double-sided tape. So there are other uses for anti-static powder, but again, the main one is going to be for heat embossing. The next item is going to be a stamp chamois. So this is by Fawn. So I keep this in a airtight Tupperware container, you can see here, and you will see me bring this out in many of my videos if I have been stamping. So this is a stamp chamois, so it will clean then any ink. You can see just how dirty mine is, and it will just clean off your stamps. Now I used to use baby wipe, or I'd use a cloth or maybe some kitchen paper, but it always kind of left little fibers and things on the stamps itself. I don't get that with this. It is designed to clean off those stamps. You keep it moist. You don't want it to be too wet, but you want to keep this moist, hence then keeping it in an airtight container. And then I'll just go and clean this by running it under the tap. It won't come back perfect, but as long as it is cleaning your stamps, if you find that it's not taking it up or it's leaving some sort of grey liquid, maybe it's going onto your fingers, then you definitely want to look at running this under the tap and cleaning it off. Once it does dry, it goes kind of rock solid, to be honest. So definitely, if you've got one of these or you're getting one, leave it in some sort of airtight container. That way then it's ready to go at a moment's notice. If I find that it is becoming a little bit drier, it's not working 100%, then I will simply spritz it with a water mister, and then I can use it virtually straight away. But again, if you're going to be using stamps, I think a stamp chamois of some description is going to be an absolute must. So talking about some upgrades, this is a Teflon bone folder. So when you have a scoreboard, it will usually come with a score tool. Now this is a lot thinner, but it will work for the intended purpose. But you can upgrade to a Teflon bone folder, and it's slightly heavier. It's definitely thicker. You can get them in different shapes and sizes as well. This one I just picked up off of Amazon. So it has this sloped end, and then it also has this pointy end as well. So you can use this in addition with your scoring tool. It will absolutely fit into those grooves there, both sides. But what you can do then is use it to burnish any of your folds. So if you have a pre-made card base, for example, that you want to make sure that it's closing fully, you can absolutely use it in that way. So taking this piece of cardstock that we scored here, so if you're adding score lines to a card or project, when you come to fold them over, it might not fold sort of really flat there. You want to burnish that to really enhance that fold line. So you can use either end of this. So you simply just run it down your fold, and it'll give you that really tidy fold there. It's not going to leave it kind of opened. And again, then you can use at either end, you can use the side of it. It doesn't really matter which section you use, but it's going to give you that really great fold. So again, upgrading to something like a Teflon bone folder might just be on the cards if you want something a little sturdier and something that is a little bit more robust. Another item, if you use tweezers a lot, that you might want to upgrade on is a pair of reverse tweezers. So with a pair of reverse tweezers, you squeeze them to open them up. And then once they're closed, they are held in place. So this is perfect for holding items. You know, if you're doing a little bit of heat embossing and you don't want to, of course, burn your fingers, then you can use this. If you are trying to stick two die cuts together, maybe you could use these. It's just an easier way of kind of holding an item. With a pair of traditional tweezers, you know, if you were wanting to hold this, you would really have to be kind of gripping that permanently to make sure that it stays hold of it. But with these, you can simply, you know, just sort of move it around and things, and it's going to stay within the reverse reverse tweezers. So again, if you find that you are using tweezers, upgrading to a pair of reverse tweezers might be the answer for you. These are a pair of Sizzix ones. They came in a bundle of other tools and things, but a lot of companies do sell these as well. So another item that's going to be a must, again, this really depends on what kind of crafting that you do, is going to be a die cutter machine. So there's tons of different die cutter machines out there on the market: electronic, manual, small, large, you know, lots to absolutely choose from. I personally have two. I have the Gemini Mini for much smaller die cutting, and then I do have my big Gemini machine as well. Again, just depending on the kind of crafting that you are going to be taking up, will depend on whether you need an item like this. If you don't think you're going to be doing die cutting, you don't need to worry about investing in a die cutter machine. If it's something you're not sure about, you could start off with a smaller machine like this, maybe a manual one that doesn't cost as much, to really see whether it's something that you are going to be using or not. So again, you don't need to run out straight away and get an item like this, but you can build up to it. Or if you're not planning to do any die cutting at all, then it's something that you absolutely don't need. So the idea here is to show you kind of some of the basic tools and items that you should have on hand, and then really just upgrading into those items like a die cutting machine, but it's all relative to the kind of crafting you're going to be doing. Don't feel like, you know, you're not going to be die cutting, you're going to solely be doing stamping, but I'm still going to buy a die cutting machine, because that could end up being a waste of money if you're not going to be using it for your crafting. So do keep that in mind. Don't feel like you have to get everything. Start with some basics and then really build up into the crafts that you're actually interested in doing. So on the back of that, you can get a stamping platform. So mine is a Misty. Mine's very dirty at the moment, please excuse that. But if you are going to be stamping, to me this is an absolute must. If you are a stamper, you know that's what you're going to be, that's your sort of craft. A stamping platform of some description is going to be an absolute necessity. I remember when I first started card making a long time ago, and I would stamp and I'd get so frustrated because the chances of getting that perfect stamp the first time didn't always happen, and then it just looked rubbish. So the benefit of getting a stamping platform is because you're going to add the stamp to the door of your stamping platform. You can put your cardstock in here, hold it in place with the magnet, and then you can literally just keep inking it and stamping as many times as you need to get that perfect impression. You know, you'll find a size, you'll find a brand out there that's perfect for you, maybe within your budget, but if you are going to be a stamper, this is an absolute must. So I'm going to leave this kind of list here. I realised that I've been adding more items onto this list of tools and items that you can have, but please don't feel like you have to go out and get absolutely everything. So again, out of what you can see here, the Teflon bone folder, only upgrade if you feel like you need to. The reverse tweezers, only upgrade if you feel like you need to. An anti-static powder tool, again, only buy it if you think you're going to use it. If you're going to get into heat embossing, then go out and buy one. If you're not, then you don't need to worry about it. A stamp chamois, again, only purchase if you are going to be into stamping. It's not something you have to have. I went a couple of years without having a stamp chamois, so it's not something that is absolute necessity to your tool kit. So I would say that the items you can see here, these really are some of the essentials that I think that you are going to want to purchase. So you don't have to buy all of these at once. Again, maybe you feel like you don't need to have all of these items. Maybe you don't think that you'll get any use out of a scoreboard. I didn't have one for a while. Again, the first guillotine that I bought was that larger Crafter's Companion one, and it was already built in. So I didn't feel the need to buy an individual score tool straight away. Again, there are a few items, like I said, that I would recommend sort of getting straight away. Again, the T-square ruler. If you're left-handed, definitely a left-handed pair of scissors. If not, then obviously if you're right-handed, just a regular pair of scissors will be fine. Find a liquid glue that works for you. So again, whether you get double-sided tape, I always started with double-sided tape. I never touched glue. I couldn't find anything that I liked, so I always used double-sided tape. It was only then I worked up to liquid glue. I found this one that I absolutely loved. And low tack tape, again, is something really great to have on hand, you know, as to be used in many different ways. So this, I think, is a really good basic kit that you can start with. You can build from here, and just don't feel like you have to get absolutely everything to begin with. I'll try to leave some links in the description box down below if you want to pick any of these items up, just links to where I've purchased certain items from. But please don't feel like if you are a beginner that you need to go out and buy absolutely everything. You only need a handful of tools. Work out what you're going to be doing, you know, what your passion is for card making, what techniques you want to try, and then you can start to introduce more tools into your kit from there. So I hope you enjoyed this video and it was sort of informative for you. If you did get anything from this video, then please give it a thumbs up. Leave me a comment down below. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, then please hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. And on screen now is another video that I think you're going to be interested in watching. So what are you waiting for? Click on that video and I'll see you in the next one.